Hey everybody, it's Casey Cole Corbin, and welcome to How Habits Sometimes Betray Us and a simple explanation of the neurobiology of addiction. Let's dive right in. Uh, Hopefully that you have received the notes. These notes are available in a handout form for we'll email it to you, so you'll see some links where you can subscribe, and then we'll send you this handout so you can have it, and it could be a permanent part of your life. You can save it on your computer, or you can print it out. There is some fill in the blank opportunities there to be able to enhance your learning. And stay tuned to the end, which will be in about 20-25 minutes, and we're going to do an activation, a thought exercise at the end that'll help kind of cement everything that we're doing here today, okay? And this is the first of a series. Then I plan on doing on First Fridays for the next year. And so First Fridays for the next year, we will be doing these live training. And part of my motivation for doing this is that as a counselor for 20 years, I've worked with addicts and worked with their families. And I love doing family education days. And so you can kind of see where I'd be in a classroom and it'd have like 100 people in it. All the families come into a residential treatment program concerned about their loved one that they dropped off there at the rehab. And they'd be coming in with, ears just ready to hear whatever they could. And I hope you have ears ready to hear as I teach too. And about an hour in, we'd take a break and people would go get some coffee or something. And I cannot tell you the number of times that people, loved ones, spouses, parents would come up to me and say, it makes sense now. For years and years and years, I could not understand why my addicted loved one acted the way that they did. They would just scratch their head with that. And an hour later into my presentation, they would go, it clicks, I understand this. And they would always say things like, why isn't this being taught in high schools? Why doesn't everybody know this? And the statistics is about 1 in every 3 households has addiction in it. That is an astronomical number of people that struggle with addiction. And then when you think about the fact that all of us are either directly or indirectly affected by addiction. And so why isn't this just preached from the mountaintops here? And so it's become part of my life ambition to do that. And so we're going to get this information out there. All right. So let's get started. So habit patterns can be good. I brushed my teeth this morning. I hope you did too. My morning routine is completely on autopilot. I don't have to give it any thought whatsoever. And you're probably the same way. And those are good habits. And so if you have the worksheet in front of you, you might even want to jot down a few things. What are some healthy habits? I want to be grateful for the part of my brain that is habitualized, and does these things for me on autopilot. There's just hundreds of things that you do, so keep that in mind. But then there are some habit patterns that can be bad. And I think we all know, for example, nobody who smokes cigarettes thinks that they're doing themselves any favors, right? But they can't seem to stop. And so this would be an example of a bad habit. There are several examples that maybe you might want to write down too. And, there's the obvious ones, like if you're using an illicit drug, it's a really bad habit. It's got legal consequences. It's affecting your family in a really bad way. You know that. But there's some subtler habits too that we might want to target as well. And so one example might be procrastination. Maybe, and I think everyone's guilty of this. I found myself looking back at my history and going, oh man, I had this opportunity and somehow, some way, I just didn't get everything done to be able to jump on that opportunity. And so that procrastination caused me to lose out. I bet you're similar. We call this subconscious sabotage, right? It's not really that we forgot. All of our brain, our mind, our spirit of who we are, these bigger parts of us doesn't forget things like that. We sabotage so that they don't occur, usually based on we only bring into our life that which we feel like we deserve. And so we got to be growing in that regard too. So this subconscious sabotage could be at play, and we really need to understand how we sabotage ourselves and how it comes into our lives, and then of course how to get rid of it. Have you noticed that some people have had a problem with substances maybe briefly in their life, and then they're able to just it dawns on them, young in life, this is not serving me well, and they drop it, just like that. Other people, it sticks. What's the difference between these two people? I guarantee you that there's some subconscious sabotage in play, and that's where the work of counseling and going back to the past and getting unhooked of the things that are tripping us up in our life today does a really good job of helping. So some habits are addictions, like alcohol and drugs we've been talking about. And these range on a severity on a scale that clinically we call it use, misuse, abuse, and dependency. And so someone, when they're becoming an addict, they kind of travel down this line, right? They start with just a use, then they misuse it, then they're abusing the substance, and then later their whole body, soul, spirit is now now physically dependent on the substance. So, as a person that goes through these stages, it's almost like that a part of your brain grows into a beast. And so we're going to use that as an analogy. You're going to hear me say beast or beast brain a lot. And a lot of people even call this the beast brain. And it's foundational knowledge for both you and your family to understand. These concepts are really vital, but they're also very practical too, because it gives you some common vocabulary, maybe even to use in your house. Like if you're the addict and the loved one might say to you, I see your lips moving, but I hear the beast brain doing the talking. As some people stop an addiction, they enter into what we call recovery, and periods of recovery can be interrupted by relapse. And so now the goal is that once you enter recovery, that you need a plan, and this is called your relapse prevention plan. And your relapse prevention plan will not make sense until you have a good understanding of the neurobiology of addiction. You've got to know your enemy, all right? And in the following, it's an easy to understand synopsis of the beast brain. Now, since nobody listening to me right now is a neuroscientist, we're going to keep things very simple. And this big part of your brain up here is the smart top part. We're going to call that the neocortex. And then the bottom part of the brain, we're going to call the beast brain. Actually, it's many little parts, like, I can't even pronounce these words, but the midbrain, the amygdala, I can't say it. And then there's a bunch of brain chemicals, and then you got to consider neurotransmitters and how they interact. And so now you understand why we really just need to keep things simple. So here's a graphic for you to kind of cement in your mind. Like we have this, it's a toggle switch on the back of this head, right? So either you are in charge, awake, right? Or it is in charge and awake. So one part of your brain is asleep and the other part's awake. And so you just go toggle back and forth, maybe even several times a day, particularly in early recovery. And so if you feel like you're two people with two motivations going on in your mind, then you understand a little bit about what it's like to be an addict, particularly early in recovery, because that toggle switch is going to go flip, flop, flip, flop, flip, flop all day long, right? Going to be like, no, I'm going to stay. I'm not going to hurt my family again. I'm going to stay on this. I'm going somewhere in my life. And then the next second, it's thinking about using. So that is completely normal. You do not need to feel guilty or shameful about that. That is, it's just the struggle. And more than that, you just need to get used to it, because that's going to be with you, okay? So the beast brain is immature. From a developmental psychology standpoint, the beast brain only grows to about 2 years old. This is the higher brain course, goes through all the developmental stages. And it lives for immediate gratification. And it throws a terrible twos, screaming, kicking, baby fit, because it wants what it wants when it wants it. And that's just the mindset of the beast brain that you're going to contend with for the rest of your days. It is very important to realize that while the beast belongs to you, it's a part of your brain. It is not you. And that you are much more than this animalistic, survival, primitive part of the gray matter that's in your skull. And so we can refer to it as the beast, and we can call it, because it is not you. So the difference between it and you. All right. So let's go ahead and do an acceptance affirmation right now. And so you can just kind of fill your name in the blank here. And I would say Casey Corbin, have a beast brain, but I am not my beast. This addicted part of me is not who I truly am. With help, I overcome the beast daily. So you have two brains, it and you. One is awake, the other one's asleep. And only one is in control at the time, but they switch like that toggle switch back and forth. And the game of recovery is won by keeping it asleep and you in charge. Now, recovery is no joke, but it is a game. This game has a playbook, and we call this your relapse prevention plan, or your RPP. It's really wise for you and your family to write it together. And in your RPP, you need to develop your personal warning signs, your triggers, and your strategies for overcoming cravings. And we call that thought-stopping techniques. And since your beast lives for the now, and it does not have the mental capacity to consider the future, when facing cravings, a great thought-stopping technique is to ponder the future in your mind. You ask yourself, how would this decision line up with my goals for what I want in a year, in 3 years, in 10 years? So next time you're faced with a craving, right? And maybe you're listening to me and you haven't had a chemical dependency issue in your life. Maybe you have other kinds of craving. Maybe it's shopping. Maybe it's lust. Maybe it's something else. You pause and think in your mind, how would this decision to act on this line up with my goals for where I want to be in a year, in 3 years, in 10 years? And this causes, because this brain doesn't have the capacity to think about the future, automatically this brain has to wake up to answer that question, and this one starts to go to sleep. Even better is to have an accountability friend ask you these types of questions, and anything that gets your head in the game of your goals to accomplish what you want in the future helps flip the switch and pull your brain functioning back to the top of your brain. That's the goal. So it's pretty simple when you think about it this way, is that, again, we want this part of the brain to stay on and this part to stay off. We want the you brain, your human brain, on. We want the beast brain, to remain off. And there are both internal and external triggers that can attempt to cause you to switch brains back into the beast. Once the process begins, it's nearly impossible for the addict to pull themselves back up again. And that's because when the bottom brain turns on, the top brain turns off. When it turns off in a very real way, you are gone and it has taken over. At this time, it's a neurological impossibility for you to internally motivate to not use and to switch back into your higher brain. Remember that your beast brain does not care what's important to you. It wants the high. That's it. It wants the high, and it wants it now. And it will manipulate you and others to get what it wants. And so when you go offline and it comes online, so too does your values, morals, and character go offline too. Your values, morals, and character, and who you are is gone. The real you is off, and so you can't internally motivate. And so someone from the outside, what we call external motivation, has to pull you out of the craving process. And this is why you need players on your team to help you win this game. Recovery planning is gathering and telling accountability partners about yourself, and that they agree to look out for your signs and symptoms of relapse. So, you're in this game of life, and suddenly, despite all of your work to eliminate as many of the external triggers, we call those PPTs, people, places, and things, as you just get hit with a craving, right? We cannot prevent all of those. They're everywhere. And so what do? Well, first, don't be surprised. Some people get surprised and shameful that that they're having a craving. No. This is recovery, right? This is normal. This is going to happen to you for the rest of your life. In fact, it'll get easier and easier as time goes on. But it doesn't mean that you're bad. It verifies that you have a medical condition now called addiction, and that you have to live your life a little different than other people. The goal, when you get pounced on by craving, is to stay in your higher brain and not dip down into the lower part. And for this, you can start doing a series of thought-stopping techniques to stop the thought of using. So first, don't be surprised. Second, and most importantly, engage your SAS team. SAS stands for Structure, Accountability, and Support Provided by Others. Accepting that recovery is not a game played solo not only helps you get further in your recovery journey, but frankly makes recovery possible. There is certainly much more to learn about addiction and the process of relapse and recovery, and there is a lot of work to be done on your relapse prevention plan, which I'll call your playbook. And supports need to be also completing their own plan, which I call a family support plan, as soon as possible. And then you guys merge and marry these two plans. So, a question for you. What do you think about the de-escalating, thought-stopping technique about thinking about the future with an accountability partner? If you have your workbook, go ahead and write that down. Why do you think that it's said that it's by far the best of all the thought-stopping technique, and there's dozens of them? Love to see that. I'd love to see it, just type it up and send it to me. I'd love to see that. Let's begin as we finish here, and then about the activation thought exercise. So if you're in a place where you're not driving and you got a second, we're going to use this, the amazing God-given ability to be able to visualize in your mind to empower your recovery. If you can, participate in this by taking in a deep breath. As you take in a deep breath, your belly slowly goes out as you inhale, and then your belly slowly goes in as you exhale. Now on your next exhale, I want you to just let your eyes slowly close. In order to better focus on my words. And on your next exhale, allow yourself to feel a wave of relaxation that starts at the top of your head and slowly travels down your arms and hands, and then travels down to your legs and your feet. Deep breaths, in, out, wave of relaxation. And I don't know what example of you and it is best for you to visualize right now. Whether you see your neocortex as the sun and your beast brain as the moon, or maybe you envision you as Dr. Jekyll and the beast as Mr. Hyde, or maybe Bruce Banner versus the Incredible Hulk. But whatever you visualize, you and it, go ahead and see it, the beast, truly how it is now, shrinking, getting smaller and smaller as addiction loses its power. Your addiction used to be big and flashy and moving around like those inflatable dancing tube men that flap around in the front of car dealerships. And see how your beast brain used to make such big, reckless moves, but now you have the information that the beast brain hoped you would never learn. Now you know, and so it is just like you pull the electrical plug and you watch it slowly deflate, shrinking into a thin puddle of plastic on the ground. Nothing to it. It was just puffed up air this whole time. You always had the real power. You have control. And now you just need a little help from others to watch that silly beast thing doesn't inflate again. And if it does, they will tell you, and you and your team will pull the plug and watch it deflate again and again. It never gets anywhere. It's already defeated. You are the victor, and you have always been so much stronger than that little bitty beast brain. As long as you keep it out of power and out of control. So let's do that future pacing now, that go into the future. Pretend like it's a year from now, a whole year, whole solid year of recovery, another wonderful clean year. And you are solidly in recovery, and you look back at the year and you think and we feel about your success. You think about a few times that were hard, but you had some help, so you won. And you feel clean and good and appreciative and loving and loved with a new zeal for life, as you now have a mission in your life, now a purpose. You know that you're important. All this meaning has meaning in your life, and it feels good. And you notice the good feeling of peace in your chest and in your stomach. And you see now that it's almost like a white light is growing brighter and brighter in your chest. This exciting peace grows down your legs towards your feet and grows out your arms into your fingertips and up to the very top of your head, tingling as it grows. And you get to bring all these great future feelings with you as you take a deep breath in. feeling like you just had a really great power nap, eyes wide open, feeling really great. All right. Well, I'd love to know how you feel now. Good. In the handout is some homework assignments. The first thing is that the person in recovery begin working on with your counselor on a relapse prevention plan, and family begin working with your counselor on a family support plan. And the next class will cover some great stuff. The first thing it's going to cover is the 4-step process of how you and your loved one, on how your loved one became an addict and how to avoid it. And the second thing is going to be the 4 stages of recovery. And so you know what to expect. You absolutely need this one because you need to know what to prepare for. There are some obstacles in your pathway that are headed your way soon. And then the very predictable 4-step process of relapse. And this is for you and your SAS team to know exactly what to look out for. And then we'll talk about the 5 stages of the way that every human being changes. And so you can map out where you are now and then also where you need to get to the next level. Great. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that. Please feel free to contact me with any questions that you might have and get the word out. This has been Casey Cole Corbin, really hoping that you better understand addiction now.